Hi everyone, my name is Jim Albert. I'm a repeat performance sales solutions specialist, and we're going to be working on showing you how to install answer frameless glass for oval trim. Something that's new and exciting for us here at Repeat Performance, because Steelcase does not provide an option with the frameless glass, and I think it's great that we can provide something with an upscale look with a clear glass or a frosted acrylic divider for your workstations and your workstation solutions. So here's what I've got going on. I've got a 30 and a 42 inch panel frame already torn down, ready to go to show you what to do. And here's some of the tools that I've got available to use and some of the parts and pieces surrounding that. So I've got my skin removal tool. I use a couple of different Allen wrench keys here. This is a 2.5 millimeter and a 3 millimeter Allen wrench. I've got my small drill gun here, a number 3 Phillips tip, a 5/16 hex bit, and then the rest of the product here includes your glass bracket standoff pieces, which mount to the horizontal frame itself, the glass bracket standoff that actually receives the glass and holds it into place, as well as all the screws and trim work that accompany it. So we're going to be dealing with a 30 and a 42 inch panel, like I said, and then the 30 inch panel, it's best to note that when we send the glass itself, it is actually 3/8 inch tempered glass, and it is for the 30 inch panel, it's going to be 29.5 inches, so we've cut it a 1/2 inch short, as well as the change of height kit glass here. We have it, instead of being 42 inches, it's actually going to be 40 inches because of the trim that's going to be mounted to the end there. So we're going to get started here, and I'm going to show you building this thing from ground up. So you've got your horizontal frames in place here, and what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and attach those Z brackets right to it. And on the Z brackets, if you take a look, I have a threaded end as well as an end to actually mount to the horizontal beam. So it's real easy. The way we design this, it just kind of sit right up against the post, and this is an important placement. If you don't have these right up against the posts, the screw holes up here won't line up with the top caps that we've drilled out for the glass standoffs. Pretty simple for a standard panel, but for a change of height, it's going to be a little different. So we got our one side that we're going to do like we normally would for a 42 inch panel, and then the opposite side we're going to have to kind of measure that out a little bit. Now what I've done is I've already have pre-drilled holes here, but I'm going to show you the measurement that you're going to need to mount this. This is a critical placement, otherwise your trim parts aren't going to line up after the fact. So I'm going to come around here and show you that from the post itself, we've got it at 2 5/8 inches. So you want to go ahead and make a mark there on your horizontal beam from the inside of that post over 2 5/8 inches to the edge of the Z bracket there. Mark that, and then you can go ahead and set your Z bracket. Now, once you've got your Z brackets into place and you're all set to mount, you want to go ahead and put your skins back on. That way you can mount your top caps and make sure that all your holes align accordingly. And I'll show you a couple of tricks there on aligning those holes if they don't quite match up with the top caps. So with the change of height, we've got the trim that we have to put on ahead of time. So we've got the plastic piece here, which actually just fits down right over the top of that. Just gonna make sure it's seated properly. And then place your change of height vertical trim right there into place. And that'll help get started. We're gonna be dealing with this here after we get check our alignment on our top caps. And so as you can see here, I've got the hole lined up for it, checking to make sure you have a top cap aligner for the next panel down. You want to make sure is in place, and then I'm going to just kind of double check to make sure that all my holes are lining up with that top cap aligner in place and stuff. And so if I run into any issues where none of these holes are lining up for the glass standoffs that are going to be sitting on top of them, I can always adjust them a little bit. Since they're metal and they're screwed down, like this one right here is a little off. Just grab your rubber mallet here, tap on it in the direction that you need it to go, and then we'll see how that lines up again. So once I've got a better alignment for that, I want to go ahead and attach my Z brackets there. Check for my alignment again, much better. And so when I put on the finished trims, everything will line up into place and be good. So I'm going to go ahead and tap this down into place. Make sure those top caps are seated well all the way down. And then we'll go ahead and start the process of mounting the glass brackets here. So when you get your glass brackets, they're going to come in a box. And then it has a couple of extra rubber gaskets for fitting, depending on the thickness of the acrylic or the glass. The acrylic that we provide, the frosted acrylic, is 1/4 inches in thickness versus the 3/8, so you can change those out and make sure you get a proper gasket in there to clamp down on that glass. And so if you notice, there's a hole that we use there for the Phillips screw that goes right down through. And so I like to have those inserted ahead of time. I'll change out my bit. And so once I seat that right on there, align the hole. And the idea is to try to get this standoff straight in alignment with the rest of the panel. And so if you want to take a look down there to make sure that's straight, and then tighten it up a little bit, tighten it down, just leave that loose for now. We're in good shape. Continue to go down for the rest of them, the line. Add the Z brackets, make sure you're aligned. Tighten them up. So far, so good. Alright, so they're all aligned and I'm ready for my glass. I'm just going to leave these a little loose there. And so the first one I'm going to put in insert is my 40-inch piece of glass. Remember, it was a 42-inch panel. I got a 40-inch piece of glass. I knock off 2 inches to account for the trim there. And I'm just going to leave that right in place. on my 30-inch glass, which is actually 29.5 inches. And so what I am looking for is a little bit of a gap here, about a finger distance between here and here when I align. So that's all I'm trying to shoot for, is just a little bit of a gap when you have two side by side. It's always nice to have a full piece of glass going across as well, but in some situations customers like to, end users like to reconfig the panels, and so having separate pieces is obviously an advantage if they're looking for a different configuration with their workstations at some point in time. So what I've done is I've got the two different size of hex keys here, and to make this a little bit quicker, it is aluminum screw. I've cut down a couple of hex keys to make it a little simpler for me to work with and to tighten them up. So you want to be careful with that, because if you have it on full-on drill mode, you will actually strip out the screws, the screw heads there, as you're lining them up. So all I'm going to do is get it tight there to hold it straight up and down so I can check for alignment. I'll do the same thing for the 30. Get them tightened down, and then you can always hand tighten these down afterwards with the other hex keys. So I've got them in place now, and if you want to take a look at it, sometimes these with the oval top cap will sit a little off from each other. They won't quite line if you have two pieces of glass sitting side by side. That's where the advantage of having one piece of glass comes into play. But in this case, I'm not too far off. A couple of adjustment screws that are available in the standoff on the back side here themselves is this center screw here, which actually pushes the bottom bracket out to keep it straight up and down instead of creating a V on the end. So you want to make sure that that is run in far enough to where your bracket is clamping tight up against that piece of glass, and so that's the advantage of having that adjustment there. So you can kind of keep that straight versus moving off at an angle in one direction or the other. So once I've got that set, I will go ahead and hand tighten these with the hex key. Make them tight, because you know as well as I do, somebody will walk up and lean right up on top of that glass there. Another thing to note on the glass is that we round the edges and we knock off any of the edges so that if somebody does happen, they're not going to cut themselves on it. It's a polished edge, very, very nice looking. So once I've got them tightened down, I'm going to check my alignment again on my panel. Make sure it looks good, all nice and straight all the way down. And so if it happens to be leaning to one side or the other, a lot of times you've got a little bit of play with the metal bracket underneath and just kind of straighten it up there, and then it's all finished out. So what I have left to do is I have the trim to put on. And so I have a universal trim and a clip-on trim that just sits on the top here. And because we have adjusted the height of the glass and made it exactly to line up with this trim part, it creates a nice aesthetic finish. Tap that down and it lines up right with the top of that. That's what you're looking for when it's all said and done. What you have is, once you get everything finished out, everything should align all the way across, even with the top caps being round and all. Like I said, those are a couple of little tweaks. You might want to come back and just take a look and make sure everything's aligned, and then clean your glass. And that is answer oval top, cap trim, frameless glass installation. Thanks everybody, and if you have any other questions about the frameless glass or any of the other products that we have here at Repeat Performance, please contact us or take a look at our website at repeatperformancesolutions.com, and we'd be more than happy to help you out. Thanks.